RequireJS for dependency management. So we'll talk about dependency management, and we'll talk about what AMD is and what is there for, and we'll talk about the concept of a module, and we'll talk about RequireJS, and then we are going to see how we can use RequireJS, and then we also see how we can configure RequireJS, and then we are going to see how we can use RequireJS and jQuery, and RequireJS optimizer, and loader plugins. So a bunch of topics. Dependency management. Well, just like any other programming language, JavaScript has a lot of libraries, right? And one library has a dependency on another library and things like that. So if you are building reasonably good size application, this dependency management becoming very, very hairy. Okay, so the assembly of those libraries in the right order is going to be difficult, and managing those things is going to be difficult. Okay, and developer wants discrete JS files and modules, and deployment wants optimized code and downloading. What that means is the developer wants to deal with separated JavaScript files. They do not want to have a single file that contains everything, right? Okay. However, when those things are being deployed, we want to minimize and optimize and compress, right? So requirement for the development time is different from requirement in the deployment time, because deployment time, optimized code downloading is more important, while in development time the ease of development is more important, right? So we need a dependency management scheme that addresses both. Okay, so requirements. Some sort of include and import and require dependencies. We need to have a way of a module specifying its dependencies in a clear fashion. Clear and standard fashion is required. Okay, we need to have a capability to load nested dependencies, of course, right? And these dependencies should be loaded in parallel, but they need to be they should be able to be downloaded in parallel, but they should be loaded in sequence depending on dependencies. Okay, so easy of use for developer, but also we need to optimization tool to help the deployment time. So what is desired dependency management? So we need to be able to specify loading schemes. So we need to be able to have load these libraries in parallel in optimized fashion, in the right code, in the right order, at the right time, at the right speed, in easy to implement fashion. So we want pretty much everything, right? Okay. So let's talk about a manual dependency management you might have to do, and obviously this is not desirable, right? Suppose if you have to deal with, in this case, 10 libraries, okay, and you need to have these libraries to be loaded in sequence. In this sequence, so basically you have to specify this script element in the correct sequence. Okay, and of course this is going to be slow because it's going to be loaded in sequence. Okay, and it's also error prone because you might not know which one has a dependency on what, right? I mean, it's very difficult to provide the correct dependencies by just looking at these 10 files. Okay, and also it's pretty messy. So we need better dependency management scheme, and that is what is called the AMD is all about, asynchronous module definition. Okay. So what is AMD? Asynchronous module definition. So AMD stands for asynchronous module definition, and it's asynchronous, meaning the libraries are being loaded in non-blocking fashion, in a parallel fashion, and they are fast. Okay. M stands for module, meaning modular code, improved maintainability. So each module is different file. Okay, and so from a developer standpoint, a developer will work with the different modules. And definition, it is well defined and it is a standard. Okay, so that's what AMD stands for. So it's a scheme or mechanism for defining modules such that the module and its dependencies can be loaded asynchronously in parallel. Okay, and this is suited for browser environment as well as non-browser environment. You can certainly use AMT, and you want in fact use AMD in standalone environment as well. Okay, it's generally used in tandem with the AMD loader. So AMD is a specification. Okay, so we need a loader that actually addresses this loading. So that is AMD loader. So why AMD? So again, it provides asynchronous and parallel operations, and it provides true package portability in modular fashion, and it provides a good dependency management, and it can be used with any AMD loader or library. Okay, so it is in fact a standard. You can think of it as a standard. Now, as I said, there are, there has to be the actual loader. This is a JavaScript library that actually performs this loading based on AMD specification. RequireJS is the most popular. Okay, and there are a few others, but pretty much everyone is using RequireJS. Okay. So let's talk about the concept of a module. You can think of a module is basically a file that contains JavaScript code. Okay. So it is a structure used to encapsulate methods and attributes to avoid polluting global namespace. So we know the pitfalls of using global variables in JavaScript code. Okay, so module should encapsulate everything. Okay, so it should not really cause any global namespace conflict. Okay. And in module definition, you can explicitly specify your dependencies, and basically each of those dependencies, once it's loaded, will give you a handle, okay, as an argument. So basically you can have an access to your dependency through this handle. Okay, I'm going to show you what I mean by that in looking at the code in a few minutes. Okay, so using JavaScript function. Now, when you perform encapsulation, you could actually use a JavaScript function like this. Okay, so that's, this is in fact a self-invoking function that we talked about, right? Okay, this is actually providing encapsulation, but it's not providing this kind of, it still has some issues from a dependency management standpoint. First of all, the type of module relies on attaching properties to the global object to export the module value. And it is difficult to declare dependencies with this model, so there is no way to actually declare dependencies this way. The dependencies are assumed to be immediately available when the function executes. This limit the loading strategies for dependencies. We need to have a flexible way of loading strategies, right? So this is not really good enough. Yeah, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, these issues in using this scheme for dependency management, don't worry about it. In fact, I should actually remove this slide because it might actually cause more confusion rather than helping to understand. Okay, so basically what we need is the more standard based, more flexible, more powerful way of managing dependencies. Okay, so that's where AMD comes in. So AMD module is defined in this format. So you are going to call define. So AMD module, AMD library provides a two method, define and require. Okay, so define is used to define a module. So this is the format, define, and then you specify your dependencies. Okay, dependency 1 and dependency 2. So you're basically indicating this module has a dependency on these two dependencies, dep1, dep2. When those two dependencies are loaded, then your function will receive each of this one as an argument, dep1 and dep2. It doesn't have to be the same name like this. Okay, so you can say x comma y. The x is in fact an object pointing to a function object of this dependency, and if you say y here, in this case a dep2, that is pointing to JavaScript object representing this dep2 module. Okay, and then you are going to define your function. Okay, and then you're basically returning a function object. Okay, so this is a definition of a single AMD module. Okay, so AMD provides the features, addresses the issues we just talked about by register the factory function calling define instead of immediately executing it. Pass dependencies as an array of string values like this, and do not grab globals. It doesn't use any globals. Only execute the factory function once all the dependencies have been loaded and executed. This function will be executed only when dependencies are loaded. Okay, and pass dependency modules as arguments to the factory function. Factory function is the function in the module. Okay, so the function has an access to these dependencies in the form of argument. Okay, so that is AMD. Now let's talk about the RequireJS. So RequireJS is a JavaScript file and module loader. So it's a loader. So it figures out AMD, and then it will figures out which one is loaded first and which one need to be loaded next, and it actually handles a parallel loading and asynchronous loading and all those things. It is optimized for in-browser use, but it could be used in other JavaScript environments, standalone environments such as Node, okay, Node.js. Using module loader like a RequireJS will improve the speed and quality of your code. Okay, so as I said before, AMD loader has two global functions. Okay, so these are only two global functions that are exposed. Okay, and there are no other global variables or global methods involved. Define is for defining a module, and require means load one or more modules. Okay, so both of these functions take two arguments: a list of dependencies, as you have seen, and then callback function that is executed once those dependencies modules have been loaded. Okay, so that is the factory function I was talking about. So if you go back to example of this, okay, so this is a define method taking you provide the dependencies in the form of an array here, and then once these two dependencies are loaded, you get handle to those dependencies in the form of argument. Okay, so that's basically what we are talking about. Okay, define versus require. What's the difference? So define completes 3 steps, okay, and require does only the first 2 steps. Define loads the specified dependencies and then call the callback function, that factory function you're talking about, and then define also register the return JavaScript object from the callback function as a module object, and it will be referenced as a dependency. Okay, so if your module is going to be used as a dependency in another module, then you need to define it. Okay, require just load the dependencies and call the callback function. Okay, so the only difference is define. In addition to loading dependencies and call the callback function, it also registers itself. Okay. Register the JavaScript object, return the callback function as a module object so that could be used as a dependency in another module. Okay, so this is an example. So define and require. So we are defining. So this is the code, and I'm gonna have this code inside my module.js file, and that represents my module. Okay, so it has a dependency on dependency 1 and dependency 2. And once these 2 dependencies are loaded, this function will be invoked. Okay, and basically, we are basically returning a function object. Okay, returning JavaScript object in this case that contains functions. Okay, so method 1 and method 2. Okay, and the require basically, so in this case, it's the user of my module. Okay. And this user of my module is not going to be used in any place else. So only thing it does is just require. So require says that I need my module, and then once I got my module loaded, and I'm gonna just use it. Okay. So user of a module will just require that module, and the define is used when a module has to be defined. Okay, questions up to this point. So you can think of RequireJS as basically a dependency management. Okay, so pretty much all programming languages out there has their own dependency management scheme built in, right? So in JavaScript, the language itself does not provide the dependency management. So there has to be another scheme, another standard that supports the dependency management, and that's basically what the RequireJS AMD as a definition of the module, and the RequireJS is one of the loader that actually performing this dependency management. Okay, moving forward. Question from Srini: can you compare define and require with something on the server side? Yeah, so whether you are using in the client side and the server side, there is really no difference. Okay, yeah, so you can certainly use these things in the Node.js environment, and the example I'm going to actually show you, and the one I'm showing you right now, it has no implication whether this is in fact the client side or the server side. Okay, so moving forward. Oh, so Shuni says, I meant with something like a Spring DI. Yeah, well, you're talking about injection. DI, you're talking about injection of the object, not, you're talking about the dependency management of the modules. Okay, so Spring DI is a little bit different thing from the what we're talking about here. Okay, all right, moving forward. Steps for using RequireJS. So first, you want to, so when you're writing, let's say, JavaScript application, whether you're writing on the client side or on the server side, you might want to decide on the project structure, okay, because there is no single standardized project structure at this point. Even though I think Yeoman or other schemes out there, they actually provide somewhat consistent project structure for your JavaScript applications, but for now, we just assume it's not standardized. So you're gonna actually decide on project structure, and then you need to download the RequireJS. Okay, so this is a JavaScript library, so we need to download it and include it, and then we are going to define modules. Okay, so these are modules that have dependencies in other modules, and then we are going to create the main.js. So this is the entry point of an application. Okay, so this entry point could be in the server side or it could be in the client side. And if you're working on the client side, then we need to have HTML file, which actually the references main.js. Okay, moving forward. So let's talk about step number 1. So you need to decide the project structure. So I provide a couple of sample project structure. So this is project directory, hello world maybe, project.html. So that is the client's HTML file that uses this JavaScript code. And then you could have a scripts directory. Here you have a main.js, and then you have require.js, and then helper and things like that. Okay. Another sample directory structure is a project directory, index.html file. Then underneath you have JavaScript and the slash, and the lives contains require.js, and then you have a main.js and util.js. This is probably more organized than the first sample structure. Okay, so once you have a project structure, then you need to have a RequireJS before you move on. So here we are going to download require.js some location of your project. And then we are going to define a module. In this case, we are going to actually build what is called the bookshelf module. Bookshelf module has a dependency on book module. So it does call define, and it will specify list of the dependencies. In this case, it has a single dependency, which is book, and then it actually provides the function. And it's receiving a handle of this book, the dependency, in the form of book argument, and then it provides its own feature. Okay, so we can actually do this as hands-on lab. And the book doesn't have any dependencies. Okay, so it just use the define, and it doesn't have any dependencies. It just return the some object. Okay. Then you're going to create the main.js. Main.js is the user of the bookshelf module. So we have created the book module, bookshelf module, and the main.js is going to use a bookshelf module. So it's going to just use a require because it is a user of a module. So require and specify bookshelf module, and then it's going to use it. Okay. And if you are using this JavaScript code in your client side HTML browser-based client, then you might want to create an application.html file. Inside the HTML application.html file, you could actually use what is called the data main attribute. Okay, so this data main attribute could specify entry point of your JavaScript code, in this case main.js file. We're going to actually do all these steps as part of the hands-on lab, so if you are kind of lost, don't worry about it. Okay, so we are going to do this one step by step, actually doing it. So as I said, data main attribute is basically providing entry point. Okay, so here in HTML file you can say data main dash js.main. That means main.js. That is in fact the entry point of your application. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's do exercise 1. So here we are going to do we're gonna actually do step by step. Yeah, feel free to do along with me. Okay, so we are going to create decide on project structure, download RequireJS, define modules, create main.js file, and create application.html. So once we have application.html file, then we're going to actually view with the browser, and then we are seeing some result. Okay, so let's actually create the project called the RequireJS project 1. So I'm going to create in the root. Okay, so I think I already done that, so let me just see. Okay, it's already there. So we are going to that project directory. So there is nothing. Yeah, so I'm gonna just is that JS live? Okay, so it looks like I already copied it over. Okay, I'm gonna just remove it so that I'm actually same as with you guys. So I'm gonna remove. Okay, so I'm same as you. Okay, all right. So we are gonna create the lives directory on the JS. Okay, so make the JS lives. Okay, so now we have JS, and then we have JS lives directory, and this is lives directory is the one in which we like to download the request.js. So the project structure is going to be something like this at the end. Okay, so this is a project name, and this is a JS, and then we have a lives. Underneath we are going to download require.js, and then we're going to create these 3 files: book.js, bookshelf.js, and main.js. We also create the application.html file. Okay, so that is we have to create these 4 files, and we have to download the require.js. So let's go to step 1.2 is downloading require.js. So we are going to click here, and if you go down here, you can download require.js minified version or with comments. Okay, so you might want to actually take a look at the contents of it. So we might want to download it with comments. So click this guy, and so this is what you are going to see. So you say Control S to save it into this live directory. Okay, so it should be require.js. Okay, so now if I see I should have require.js. Okay, downloaded. Okay, so we just did that. Okay, in fact you can take a look at it if you want to. So let's actually go to this directory from brackets. So I'm gonna open that directory, open folder, and go to require. Yeah, so this one. Okay, so so this is JS and live, and if you take a look at the RequireJS, I mean this is RequireJS and with the comments. Okay, all right. So so we just did that, and now we are going to define modules. The first we are going to define book.js module. Here it doesn't have any dependency. Okay, so we're gonna just say this. It just returns this guy. So book. So let's create a file, and we'll just define. Okay, and we are going to save, and we are going to save on the jsbook.js file. So it's going to be book.js. Okay, all right, so now then we are going to create bookshelf.js file. So if you take a look at this guy, it has a dependency on book, and it's receiving that book, and then it does also have a method called the list books, in which is basically just displaying the book's title. Okay, so I am going to create a new file, and I'm going to just copy this code. All right, and we are going to save it here, and we are going to save it as bookshelf.js file. Okay, all right, okay, so we did that. Now we're going to create the main.js file. So this is the one that actually used the bookshelf module. So you can see it's using bookshelf module, and basically what it does is it receives the bookshelf module object, and it's just called the list book method of the bookshelf object. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So we are going to create the control new, and we are going to create this main.js file. Okay, save it, and it's main.js. Okay, right, so we have that. Now we are going to create application.html file. So assuming these modules, I mean, you could use these modules in the server-side standalone Node.js environment code or client-side code. By client, I'm talking about the browser. So if you want to have this one to be used in the client side, okay, we are going to create the application.html file. So let's create the application.html file. Control new, and here we are going to copy this code and save it, and this is going to be application.html, application.html, and save. Okay, so here we are using the data main and JavaScript main. So basically it will actually use this guy. Okay, it will run this main code. Okay, okay, so that is that. Okay, now we can actually go to the browser here. Okay, and we can click the browser to access it, and we should actually see display JavaScript console here. So press F12, and if you click the console, oops. Oh, the main.js is not there. Okay, so why main.js is not there? It is there. All JS should be in JS folder. Yeah, I think we are in the in fact everything is so let me actually see the directory structure, whether we are looking at the correct JS. Okay, so okay, so I was in the so I should have so this one, so these files are not in the JS directory. Okay, so let me see whether this one, let me actually copy. Bracket doesn't allow me to do that. Okay, so so I'm gonna just copy manually here. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy move all JS to JS directory. Okay, all right, so that should be good. Okay, so now we do this and open it, and now if you press F12, okay, now life is worth living with passion. So that worked okay. So if I want to change some code here, let's see, bookshelf here, book, so this is where things are coming from. Okay, if you want to actually display the publisher as well, that's fine. So for your own exercise, I want you to let me see whether there are any for your own exercise on this one as well. Oh, okay. So you also, yeah, you can display the network pane of the Chrome developer tools. Note that functions in the bookshelf modules does not execute it until book module is loaded, and even though it's loaded before. So you can see bookshelf module is loaded before book.js module, right? Okay. However, the things are being executed in the correct order. Okay. All right, so for your own exercise, the goal of exercise is to add another dependency. Create school.js with the following code, okay? And then modify the bookshelf.js. It reads the school.js as additional dependency. Add another method, list school, that display the name and city of the school in the console, and modify main.js so that it invokes the list school method. Okay, so I'll give you guys about the 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to do this exercise. Okay, so let's see how we can add configuration to RequireJS. So you can call config method of require object, okay, and basically you can set base URL and the path and the wait seconds. So these are the things that you can specify as a configuration options. So base URL is the root path of all module lookups. It will try to look for that first. Okay. Path is basically you want to use a simplified name instead of this full name. Suppose if you have a full path like some/version 1.0/xyz/abc or something like that. Instead of using that full name, you can just name it as a sum, and then you could use sum like this. Okay. Wait seconds is like you wait until the 15 seconds, okay, before moving forward. So base URL is a root path to use for all module lookups, path mappings. Now there is what is called a seam, and this is actually used. Suppose if you are using modules that are not compliant with AMD, okay, you can still use those libraries by configuring them through this seam. Okay, shim, one of those two, I guess. Okay, so you are basically providing some kind of a module wrapping through shim, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so this is an example of usage of shim. So jQuery itself is not really AMD module, right? And there are a couple of other plugins like fit text, and slide. So these are jQuery plugins that are not in AMD module format. They are not defined through AMD format, right? So it doesn't call a define method and all that stuff. So if you still want to use these non-AMD modules, you can still use it by having them configured as a shim. Okay, so once you have done that, basically you are going to be able to use jQuery and fit text and slides as a dependencies in other modules. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna do exercise 2. Okay, so in this case, we are going to start the server. So I provided run http server.sh. Okay. By the way, this is actually using port 8000, so I don't have to actually stop the server, but let me just stop the anyway. So what you want to do is go to the website. So it's I'm gonna go to the labs, and then go to Ajax. It's not cross domain, sorry. It's cd, and what are we doing right now? RequireJS. Okay, so RequireJS. So I go to RequireJS, and you can see that is what is called the run HTTP server bat file for Windows, and if you're running Mac or Linux, run HTTP server. So we are basically running HTTP server. Okay, so just type run HTTP server like this. Okay. So basically, we are basically running web server, providing the mod, providing the libraries. Okay, so again, this is to bypass single origin or same origin policy constraint. Okay. All right, so we are running it. Now we are going to click this guy. Okay, so this is an application that does not use RequireJS at this point, and we're going to actually convert it into to use the RequireJS. So let's actually run this application. So localhost 8000 samples, and if you click this guy, this is what you're going to see. Okay, and you can actually do this. You can see the text is automatically refitted. Okay, it changes, right? Okay, all right, so that is actually using a fit text. Okay, so let me just show you that. Okay, so we just did that, and also slide as well. So it's and observe the font size of the so actually font size. There are in fact two things. The font size, let me just show you. Yeah, you can see the font size is actually becoming smaller and smaller. Okay, and also things are being slided down. So it is in fact it's using two. Is it actually changing the font size? I don't think it's using font size. Let me see whether this one. Yeah, okay, so the image is actually getting smaller. So anyway, so this guy is using two plugins. Okay, so let's get back to. So if you take a look at the structure of this application, so I'm gonna just open the directory of this particular app. So I'm gonna go to the labs and RequireJS and samples. Okay, and the one we want to do is I'm gonna just use the samples. Okay, all right, so the if you take a look at the project structure of the space exploration start, okay, so this is the one that does not use RequireJS, and then we have a complete. This is the one that actually use RequireJS. So what you're going to do is we are going to convert this application that does not use RequireJS to use RequireJS, the dependency management. Okay, so that's basically what we are going to do here. So if you take a look at the index.html file, so let's take a look at the index.html file. Okay, and so yeah, what is this red thing all about? Anyway, so that probably is not a big deal. You can see it does have 3 slides. Okay, so this is the image 1, 2, 3, and then we have the jQuery library, and then we have 2 plugin library loaded, and then we have this code. Okay, so this is actually using fit text of so fit text is actually for only H1 element. So H1 element is this guy. Yeah, so this is actually the font size of this one should be actually the kind of adjusted, and then we have a response. Yeah, the all slide. So this is one that these things will be kind of slided into to fit the screen. Okay, anyway, the point is that we are using 2 libraries. Okay, and also jQuery library, and none of these are in fact in AMD format, right? Okay, so I am going to so we are going to convert this guy. So first of all, you are going to download and require.js from here as we have done before. So you're going to actually copy it over here, And I'm gonna just explain this guy, and then I'll let you actually do the lab. Okay. So the first thing we do is we are going to have the data main. Okay, so an HTML file. So this is the the client HTML file. So we want to have a data main. Okay, and the data main is going to actually look for config.js. Okay, and then we have JS require.js file. So that is actually, yeah, so basically we need to have require.js, and then we also starting with the config.js. Okay, so and then we're gonna actually comment this guy out. Okay, so we comment this guy out. Okay, because we want to have these files in the different files. Okay, and then this is the config.js. This is the main entry point. Okay, so here what we have is we have a dependency main, and then we have a shim. So here we specify this non AMD module, jQuery, fit text, and slides. Okay, all right. So now in the main.js we are going to have this require. So we're gonna require these three the modules, and then basically we get those three modules in the form of jQuery object, fit text, and slide, and then we are performing those operations inside the main. Okay, so basically what we have done is we remove this code, and then we restructured into RequireJS, and main.js in fact contains dependencies and the actual code. Okay, and when you refresh the page, and it still should work as expected. Okay, so I'm gonna actually try the the complete code. So I'm gonna just index.html file, and if I run this guy, and yeah, so if I do this one still work. So yeah, so this one is using fit text, and the other one is actually using slide. Okay, so again, if you take a look at this one, we have a JS, we have a config.js, and main.js, and then require.js, and then we have a plugin, these two plugins. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys about the 10 minutes to try exercise 2. Next topic is now jQuery and RequireJS and jQuery. So far we have worked with the simple cases. So while RequireJS loads jQuery, just like any other dependencies, jQuery is quite popular. So we might in fact actually deal with jQuery in a different fashion. So you might want to approach your jQuery RequireJS configuration differently depending on whether you are starting new project or you're adapting old code. Okay, what it means is that if you're starting brand new application, brand new project, you might want to use in fact the RequireJS AMD compliant jQuery module, while if you have old application, then you might actually take the different approach. So jQuery registers itself as a global variables as $ and jQuery even when it detects it. Yeah, so when it detects AMD and RequireJS. Okay, so AMD approach advise against the use of global functions, but the decision to turn off these jQuery globals hinges on whether you have non-AMD code that depends on them. Okay, so let's actually move forward with the examples in a few minutes. So module name, jQuery defines named AMD module jQuery, all lowercase, when it detects AMD RequireJS. Okay, so and to reduce the confusion, we recommend using jQuery as the module name in your require config file. Okay, so jQuery is in fact the capable of detecting detecting the AMD RequireJS, and then it will actually provide AMD module called the jQuery. Okay, so in the configuration, maybe what you want to do is you want to use, instead of $, you just use a jQuery, and you provide the path of jQuery library. Okay, non-AMD jQuery plugins, you could actually still use a theme. So again, in this case, we are going to actually create two plugins that are not AMD compliant. Okay, so we're gonna call it the alpha and beta. Okay, and so now let's actually take a look at exercise 3. So in exercise 3, here we are going to use a shim when jQuery plugins are not AMD modules, and then we are going to recreate these plugins as AMD modules, and in that case we don't need to use shim. Okay, all right, so in this example, so if you actually click this guy, yeah, so this is the case. This message is from plugin A, and this is plugin alpha, and this is from plugin beta. In this case, these two plugins are not yet AMD compliant, okay, which means they are not defined with a define method. So if you take a look at the actual code, so that is, this one is the project is sample example jQuery shim. Okay, example jQuery shim, this guy. If you take a look at the JS file over here, we have these two JavaScript library. As you can see, this is the plugin. Only thing it does is just the display alpha is go, and then we have a beta .js file which contains code for creating very simple plugin. Again, this is not AMD compliant, right? Okay. So in this case, yeah, so this is the app.html file which we just displayed. Okay, so data main, and so let's take a look at the app.js file. So app.js file, and here we have these two guys as using shim, because these two modules are not the AMD compliant. Okay, right, so that's what we take a look. And then require app main. So in this case, main.js file, we have jQuery as dependency, and this one is also dependency, and this is also dependency. So we could actually specify all these guys as dependencies in main.js file, even though these two guys are not really AMD compliant, but we actually use the shim to kind of wrap it as, let's say, the AMD module. Okay, and then basically in this function, for the body element, we just call the alpha method of this plugin, and then beta method of the plugin. Okay, and so we have seen this too. All right, so for your own exercise, create jQuery gamma.js, which just contains another plugin, and then I want you to modify other files accordingly to display, the message. It should actually display alpha is go, beta is go, and then gamma is go. Okay. All right, so that is a case where we are using two plugins that are not AMD compliant. And here 3.2, now we are going to actually run this code, and we are going to actually let's see, yeah, so this one, why it doesn't actually display. Okay, so I expect it displays the same message. Okay, so 3.2, okay, so that's it. And in this case, on the path we have a jQuery, with this guy, with the path, and main.js is the same thing. And now we actually jQuery alpha and jQuery beta, you now actually have we have defined these two modules in the AMD format. Okay, so that's the difference. However, why it doesn't actually display? Oh, now it display. Okay, so I don't know why it takes some time. So let me actually try again. Click this guy. Are we running? We are running. Yeah, okay, it is running. So this one should yeah, so it's, yeah, I expect the alpha is go and beta is go on this exercise. That is interesting. So let me see why that's the case. Next topic is RequireJS optimizer. So far what you have learned is the how to use RequireJS as a dependency manager. RequireJS optimizer is, let me explain what that is. So once you've finished doing development and want to deploy, what you want to do is we want to combine modules into field files for deployment. Okay, in fact, as little number as possible, concatenate and minify JavaScript files, concatenate CSS import files, and minify CSS files and things like that. Okay. All right. So basically, these are the steps that you want to follow. So we are going to use what is called the all.js, that is RequireJS optimizer. Okay. And then you're going to create a build profile. So based on this build profile, optimizer will perform these operations. Okay. And then you're going to run the optimizer. Basically, this is going to be one of the Node.js the plugins. So you say node.all. Yeah, we are going to use the node as the executor. So node all.js -o and build.js. So it's going to build build.js. Okay. And then you actually build the deploy and access the application. The node version of the optimizer, so in this case we could actually install the npm install require.js-g, and then you should be able to actually run all.js-o app build.js. Okay, so alright, so let's actually do exercise 4. So in exercise 4, when you run this code, okay, you can see it's actually taking 500. Let's actually see how much time it takes. So here, and if you press F12, and let's actually try one more time, and go to select the network. What is a network? CS console. And let's see, go to refresh. What is a network? Console HTML. Oh, this is a Firefox. Sorry about that. Okay, so we want to run it, and I want to just capture this guy. This is the one. We are going to run it on Chrome. Okay, now let's open developer tool. Okay, so network, and we are going to try one more time, refresh it, and you can see it's actually loading a lot of modules, and it takes about 593 milliseconds because it's actually loading all these files individually. Okay. Alright, so what we want to do is so we are gonna perform the optimization step by step. Okay, so you are going to download all.js file from here. Okay, so you're gonna actually download the minify with the comments. Either one is fine. Okay, you download it, and then you have to create the build.js file. Okay, so these are the modules. Yeah, so this is the build.js file. Okay, and then you're going to run this command. Okay, and then what you're going to do is it basically create the one single file. So in this case, now we're gonna actually run this guy, and here you're gonna actually see on one single app.js file will be loaded, and that takes only 231 milliseconds. Okay. All right, let me actually finish up the presentation, and then I'm going to let you guys do the lab until 4:30. Okay, so I felt like I'm rushing a little bit, but I apologize. Okay, RequireJS and loader plugins. What is a loader plugin? So loader plugin is kind of special plugin that lets you actually load something that is not JavaScript file. For example, let me actually give you a couple of examples, like a text. So that's something we're gonna actually play around. Load dependencies as a plain text file. So rather than JavaScript file, you want to be able to load the text file. And let me give you an example of that. Okay, so that is text plugin. Suppose if you want to build HTML inside your JavaScript code. Okay, it'd be nice to build HTML using regular HTML markups instead of building up DOM structure in JavaScript. So there is no good way to embed HTML in JavaScript file. So text plugin in RequireJS to the rescue. So text plugin will actually let you get the data in the form of text file. Okay, now in order to use it, you're going to use this text plugin with the exclamation mark, text exclamation mark, text exclamation mark. In this case, you are going to be able to get the contents of this module.html as HTML, and you're going to get the contents of the CSS module CSS as a text, and then you should be able to actually get in the form of CSS argument, and then you should be able to use it. Okay, so let me actually kind of move on, and we'll do the exercise 5. Okay, so in this case, we are going to run this guy, and you are going to see, in fact, these 3 lines of code. I mean, these 3 texts are being displayed. Okay, and that is expected. Okay, and then if you take a look at the code, okay, we have these libraries and you have template. Okay, so we have actually template file HTML, and that's basically what if you take a look at the template.html file, so template.html file. So this is the one that we want to be able to receive as a HTML file or string. Okay, string, and then we want to be able to use it in our code. Okay, so that is this code. So we actually receive it, and then in our code, so we are actually receiving book.tpl HTML file, and then we receive it as a template, and then we just use it as a string in our body. Okay, so that's how we were able to display those 3 strings on the page. Okay, so for your own exercise, modify the book.tpl HTML, for example, add another line. Okay, and then remove text in the main.js file and refresh the page. It should not work anymore because you're not using text loader plugin anymore. And create another HTML file. So just edit this again and create another HTML file and read it as a second HTML file and display it as in the index.html file. Okay, so that is for your own exercise. Okay, so I'm gonna just